And to be quite honest with you, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with Sue Bird.
After the current decline in viewership and lack of interest in the WNBA, Sue Bird has come full circle when discussing Caitlin Clark.
This is what we want. Instead, we're still getting bullshit on viewership numbers.
Since Steven had supported Caitlin Clark throughout the season and wasn't going to stop now, things got quite tasty between the two. Step A wasn't going to sit there and watch Caitlin Clark be vilified.
ESPN. So because I work at my day job on ESPN, I'm supposed to ignore the fact?
Sue Bird didn't like Steven pointing up the facts that viewership is declining and that no one is particularly interested in seeing the WNBA finals.
I've seen Shannon Sharp talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product that ESPN
that they invest in?
Yeah, that's where these viewership numbers are coming. Yeah, it's a business you're in. It's not that they can't. And by the way, it's not that they can't be critical of certain things. They can have their opinions. But that's where I don't understand the frame.
Even though Steven is employed by ESPN, he nevertheless expresses his genuine thoughts about current events. The WNBA has been having trouble keeping the same numbers without Caitlin, who is a tremendous draw. Sue Bird thinks that although if stadiums are still packed and audiences are still attending, viewers are still watching since ticket prices have drastically decreased.
At the Target Center in Minnesota, selling for as low as $10.
$10 for a playoff game ticket is absurd, but do we really believe that tickets would be sold for the same amount if Caitlin were a WNBA player? Clearly not.
Sharp starts to talk about the attendance and says, basically that Caitlin had the highest attendance in the playoffs, which Caitlin Clark played her first 2 rounds in Connecticut, which only holds roughly 10,000, and they got swept, so they never made it back to Cambridge in Indiana to play a home game. So they absolutely did not have the highest.
Sue Bird, a WNBA recently, Caitlin, a legend and one of the most revered characters in women's basketball, found herself at the heart of an unexpected and intense debate. It all started when Bird allegedly pointed fingers at Caitlin Clark for the recent decline in ticket sales and WNBA playoff rankings. Many were surprised by Bird's remarks because Clark's influence on the sport has received high accolades for garnering a lot of attention.
There is a Caitlin Clark effect on all of basketball, and especially on women's basketball ratings. Kudos to her. She has elevated an entire sport in viewership.
Bird, a longtime supporter of the WNBA's expansion and resiliency, felt that Smith's comments painted the league in an unfairly negative light, undermining the players' collective effort and the league's development over the years. Bird was quick to counter this narrative, determined to protect the league's image and assert that it could thrive beyond one player's impact. Sue Bird's annoyance wasn't limited to Stephen A. Smith. She also took aim at Shannon Sharp, who had been vocal in praising Caitlin Clark's significant contribution to women's basketball. Bird, a longtime supporter of women's basketball, was adamant that the league's growth should not be tied to one player, believing that it could thrive through collective efforts rather than individual star power alone. However, Bird felt that this focus on Clark was undermining the WNBA's broader efforts.
And with Shannon, there's an aspect of them defending their stances on her. We were right about Caitlin and this is our defense. And I still think there's something twisted there because nobody ever said that Caitlin wasn't going to be a marketing gem, a unicorn.
However, it is difficult to ignore the reality of the situation. Caitlin Clark's dominant performances in college basketball garnered unprecedented attention, and many hoped that this momentum would carry over to the WNBA playoffs. Without Clark, the WNBA faced a significant challenge: how to maintain the excitement and fan engagement she had generated. The league suddenly found itself in a difficult spot, scrambling to figure out how to fill the void left by her absence and retain the same level of interest.
You guys, take a look at the stands. All the seats, even the courtside seats, are empty.
The WNBA responded to the drop in interest by cutting playoff game ticket costs. Fans soon realized that without Caitlin, although it appeared that the WNBA was successfully selling out games and maintaining high attendance due to Clark's presence, the reality was more nuanced. The decision to lower ticket prices was a deliberate strategy to avoid the embarrassment of empty arenas during important matchups, which created an illusion of high demand but didn't reflect the true level of fan interest, said Fuller. But it concealed the fundamental problem that the enthusiasm and attention were just different without Clark.
to the Liberty Games. They're full. It looks full in Vegas. It looks full every single place that you go. TD Garden sold out when Caitlin wasn't playing there for a regular season.
The numbers, however, tell a different story without the buzz and excitement that Caitlin Clark consistently brought to the game. The WNBA has struggled to generate the same level of interest from fans. Sue Bird's initial support of Caitlin Clark's impact on the sport has made her recent remarks all the more surprising. If the WNBA had kept ticket prices at the same level as during Clark's season, it's highly likely that the arenas would have been far less crowded. This shift in strategy implies that Bird is more focused on safeguarding the league's long-term reputation than on revolutionizing women's basketball.
It's about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides, not only.
It has become evident that Caitlin Clark's ability to garner a lot of attention for women's basketball has made her both a hero and, in some circles, a target. This is a common occurrence for athletes who become well-known quickly. They frequently encounter criticism from rivals as well as occasionally from people in their own industry for every fan who celebrates. Others see Clark's quick rise as a challenge to the status quo. Cheryl Swoops, another WNBA legend, has also voiced conflicting opinions regarding Clark's influence.
Caitlin Clark come into the WNBA and do what she's doing right now. Immediately, absolutely.
Without players like Caitlin Clark, the league finds it difficult to sustain the same level of interest and excitement in not just ardent basketball fans, but also casual viewers, capturing a broader audience that the league has long sought. However, once she is out of the spotlight, the WNBA is forced to face a reality where maintaining widespread interest becomes a much steeper uphill battle. Although the WNBA has made significant strides in recent years growing its fan base and visibility, it continues to face significant obstacles. Caitlin Clark was a unique phenomenon, an athlete whose skill and charisma went beyond the sport, drawing in fans who might not often watch women's basketball and garnering widespread attention and steadfast support.
People stick around and want to watch the others. A rising tide lifts all boats, which is what we were saying, both Shannon Sharp and myself, when we addressed that issue. Why would you say a quote like that? We work for ESPN, so I'm supposed to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the facts? That ain't what we...
Her ability to captivate casual fans generated a surge of interest that the league has struggled to replicate. Now, in her absence, the WNBA is struggling to maintain that momentum as it navigates the difficulty of sustaining the excitement Clark generated and filling the gap left by her star power. Caitlin Clark, for her part, has remained focused on her game, consistently performing at an elite level despite the growing noise and attention surrounding her. As her star continues to rise, it's becoming harder to ignore the growing number of people who seem to be an undeniable talent.
See, WNBA playoff viewership down now that Caitlin is out. And is that somewhat factually accurate? Yes. It's not accurate. Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw.
Yeah.
She brings in all the things. We know this.
Despite her tremendously beneficial influence on the sport, Clark has seen her fair share of detractors and haters. These critics frequently seem more interested in undermining her achievements than in recognizing the attention and excitement she has brought to women's basketball. Despite this, Clark has managed to remain focused on her performance, navigating the pressure and criticism with grace as she continues to improve her game and the sport overall. What's especially annoying about this situation is that the criticism directed at Caitlin Clark doesn't seem to be based on anything she has actually done wrong. On the contrary, her extraordinary popularity has increased awareness of women's basketball and helped elevate the WNBA as a whole. In the process, Clark's outstanding performances and magnetic personality have not only attracted new fans, but also sparked new discussions about the sport's future. However, instead of receiving universal praise for these accomplishments, Clark has encountered skepticism and, in some cases, outright hostility from certain quarters. This backlash feels unjustified because Clark has done nothing but excel and promote the game, bringing a spotlight that the league has long sought.
To imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Nah, it doesn't work that way.
This trend of discrediting accomplished female athletes is not new, but It is especially disheartening in the context of women's basketball, a sport that is still vying for respect and mainstream recognition. Like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, Caitlin Clark has the potential to be a game-changing player. Rather than uniting around her and leveraging the momentum she brings, some in the WNBA seem reluctant to fully embrace James's potential to draw fans and elevate the sport to new heights. Accept what Clark stands for: the sport's deeper fears, where revolutionary success is occasionally achieved, are reflected in this unwillingness to support her celebrity. Sue Bird, on the other hand, has always been an advocate for the WNBA's success and wants it to flourish whether or not Caitlin Clark is a part of it. She recognizes that the league needs to be seen as strong and vibrant beyond just one star player, but it's hard to ignore the fact that a large portion of the league's recent success is closely linked to Clark's ability to draw viewers and generate buzz. Bird's public annoyance with commentators like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe is probably motivated by Clark.
Regardless of whatever noise has been out there. So when you show that you're able to perform in the face of adversity, to me, that is the true testament to greatness.
The WNBA is currently having difficulty maintaining its position in the cutthroat sports world without Caitlin Clark. The league's decision to lower ticket prices during playoff games is a clear indication that they are aware of this problem, even though they aren't publicly acknowledging it. By lowering prices, they were able to retain arenas fuller, but it's obvious that this strategy is a short-term rather than long-term solution. The WNBA continues to promote the idea that it can succeed without Clark, despite the numbers suggest otherwise.
When they got eliminated from the playoffs, the attendance dropped, the ratings dropped. If the WNBA is more, it is, and I get it. Why aren't people watching?
Since Clark's departure, attendance and viewership have significantly decreased, demonstrating her enormous value to the league's success. Going forward, the challenge will be how the WNBA can sustain fan interest and generate similar excitement when Clark isn't in the spotlight without players of her caliber. The league must find creative ways to keep fans engaged, and sport-relevant figures like Sheryl Swoopes and now possibly Sue Bird have raised concerns about the level of attention rather than commemorating Clark's achievements and her capacity to raise awareness of women's basketball. Some in the sport seem to be ignoring the fact that her soaring fame has only improved the league as a whole. Her ascent raises concerns about whether one player should receive so much attention, which highlights a larger conflict about striking a balance between individual fame and the league's overall development.
You had people fighting tooth and nail the entire season, not wanting it to be this way because other people weren't getting flowers, or she was getting too much attention, or she gets a special whistle, or I'm gonna check her off the ball here just because.
Ultimately, Caitlin Clark is doing nothing but good for the WNBA. She has attracted new fans, greatly raised viewership, and created buzz about women's basketball in ways the league has never seen before.
Like, what was your adjustment to her? Because that's really like some Steph Curry type of adjustment.
No, Caitlin is tough. She's good as advertised. I mean, in the WNBA, like, they saying she's struggling and stuff like that, right? She had 20 points in her debut, 10 turnovers. But, like, I mean, if you have 20 points in your debut and that's a bad game, then, like...
That's considered a bad game. That's heavy, bro.
What does a good game look like? You know what I'm saying? So, playing against Caitlin Clark, like, she's really that dude.
I feel like the pressure on her is on some LeBron drafted into the NBA type of pressure. Like,
the pressure is definitely
different. Is there. Like, even if she do one wrong thing, the clips is gonna be wrong.
Hopefully, as time goes on, more people will realize how much Caitlin Clark has contributed to the WNBA. The league's recent struggles without her should serve as a wake-up call to anyone who doubted her significance. Without Clark, the WNBA simply doesn't have the same level of excitement, energy, or viewership, which should prompt serious reflection within the sport. It's time for everyone, from fans to players and commentators, to fully acknowledge just how vital she is to the future of women's basketball.